Unspoken Issues.
Okay, are you ready to get into this finale here? I know we've been talking for quite a while, but we've got our finale. Okay, sixth part, the finale of Rise of the Midnight Suns, Ghost Rider number 31, which I thought was interesting, but then again, it makes sense. 3 issues, well, 2, 28.
Yeah, because each new number 1 was coming out like the following month. So
yeah,
as these books are like Spirits of Vengeance, there were like 3 or 4 issues, of that book as the
continued to unfold.
Like Blaze fights another one of the Lilin in issue number 2, I think, of Spirits of Vengeance. So
okay.
Yeah, all these books kind of are continuing as the story goes on.
Okay, all right. So Ghost Rider number 31, written by Howard Mackey, penciled by Andy Kubert, inked by Joe Kubert, colored by Gregory Wright, and lettered by Janice Shang. That synopsis is coming up, but first let me talk about Amazon Music. If you're looking for a good platform that can fill those musical needs, Amazon Music has you covered. If you head to getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network, you can get a free 30-day trial where you can check out over 70 million songs. That's getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network for that free 30-day trial. Setback after setback, Lilith now plans to take her Lilin to the land of the Midnight Sun. Get it? To prepare for their final battle. Meanwhile, Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze, the Darkhold Redeemers, Morbius, and the Night Stalkers are all kind of doing their own thing, but immediately just transported by Doctor Strange just outside of Lilith's forces. Seeing this, Lilith realizes she must act fast and convinces Pilgrim to open a portal on her chest to bring her Lilin back onto the Earth. Now, still trapped in a limbo type of dimension, Danny Ketch is being torn apart until a hand reaches into the void, pulling him through an open portal. The only problem is, this hand belongs to Lilith. Danny is about to be reborn as a Lilin. As the forces converge, our heroes versus the Lilin, Louise Hastings recognizes that Lilith's portal is the main threat and convinces everyone to try to close the portal on her chest. Now, I mean, just describing this is weird. Like, you've got this person with a big portal, a big gaping hole on their chest, and things are pouring out. Well, at least one thing has poured out. A person has poured out of Lilith's chest. But it's too late, as Danny Ketch is brought through to fight on the side of the demons. Tearing through Lilin and heroes alike, the Danny Demon, I put that in quotes, the Danny Demon seems near unstoppable until Ghost Rider and Blaze are able to subdue him, until they themselves are taken surprised by the Lilith. Now Lilith plans to make them all enter her rift and be reborn as her children. Knowing time is of the essence, Ghost Rider and Blaze realize they need to take Danny and put him back through the rift with some luck, are able to do so. When Ghost Rider gets a hold of Lilith, he bends her in half, shoving her head through the portal on her chest, creating a tremendous feedback explosion, ending the fight, leaving Ghost Rider face down on the ground unconscious. Just then, the Night Stalkers are about to attack the disabled Ghost Rider. This was funny. This battle just ended, and like Blade and Hannibal King are like, okay, now's our chance. Let's go ahead and take out Ghost Rider.
They're all right here.
Yeah. And so they're just about to like try and kill Ghost Rider or do something to him, but they're immediately transported away, with the Darkhold Redeemers leaving as well. So they're transported away, and the only ones that are left are Morbius and Blaze, and of course Ghost Rider. And appearing before them is the master of all your pain, Doctor Strange. He explains he could not battle Lilith because their mystical forces could not meet without undoing dimensional walls that he seeks to protect. Strange teleports all of them away, saying he intends to help the complicated situation with Danny Ketch and Ghost Rider. Meanwhile, Nakoda, she was back with the Lilin. She awakens to find all of the Lilin are either dead or missing. However, Lilith awakens, and a horrified Nakoda realizes she is now food for Lilith to regain her power. And that is how we end the introduction. This is not an ending, folks. This is the beginning. This is the beginning of the Midnight Suns. My man, this was a good series.
Again, I love this series. The finale is kind of one of the weaker points, I think. I just feel like it's a little rushed.
Oh, man. There should have been so much more. Even though
there's a huge, I'm pretty sure this was a double-sized issue as well. There was just, I think, a little too much going on, and it's resolved well enough, but I kind of wanted to see a little more interaction in some of the battles, a little more and you know, I'm a big fan of the Kuberts, but some of the action doesn't really flow that great. So just a few minor complaints on that, and we finally get a brief Morbius versus Blackout tease, but not much else. They kind of, when the battle kind of starts out, they're kind of going after each other, but we never really see them, how that kind of plays out. But the monstrosity that is Dan Ketch in this in this battle, he's making, you know, he's going after everybody basically. I wonder, it's not really explained if that's partially Dan kind of trying to regain some control and kind of fight on the for the good guys, or if it's just he's mindless and he's just kind of swinging at everything that comes near him.
I understand the fact that Dan is in this limbo dimension. What I didn't understand is how Lilith had access to it, and how Lilith was like, "Hey, come here. I'm going to take you." And so it makes you think that Danny is like stuck inside Lilith somehow. But obviously that's not the case. She apparently just has ease of access to that dimension that he's stuck in. But to bring him out as a Lilin, if you're reading this book, when you were reading Ghost Rider, you were like, oh man, how are they going to resolve this with Danny? And then all of a sudden you could possibly be reading this and thinking to yourself, well, Danny's not going back to being Danny. Granted, you probably knew better. You talk about this being quick. I got to agree with you there, because Danny's brought out, he's wreaking havoc, and they're just like, put him back. And what do they do? They throw him back in there. We could have done 3 or 4 issues of Danny Ketch being this hell demon, and they would have had to deal with it. That probably wasn't on the table. They were just like, we got to get this issue.
Yeah, they got to resolve it and move on to the next.
Right. And that's another thing that I got to keep reminding myself, is that this was the beginning. So what we're seeing here, as quick and as easy as it seemed, Lilith is still around. So I'm sure that she's probably going to be plaguing these guys for a while. This is just kind of their first run-in with her. They weren't walking away unscathed. We watched Danny Ketch become this demon. We know that things are getting set up for the Night Stalkers to at some point butt heads again with Ghost Rider. These events that are put into place are just like, here are some of the things you get to kind of look forward to. I look at it as the 6th part of the first chapter, like the kind of the end of the first chapter of what's going to be happening. This felt like, okay, we've got all these things. It's got to come to a head. We got to have a huge battle. I think I am going to side with you where it feels like it kind of felt short. I wanted more.
It was almost more like it's a big dog pile. So we can't really show you who's fighting who or who's doing what. It's just, we get little glimpses here and there, but
yeah, we get back to our art by this is Andy and Joe, right? This does not stick out like what we were seeing before to me in the previous Ghost Rider issue. It didn't have that feel to me, and it should have, because this should have been like,
this is the big issue.
This is it. Right. This is it. I find it funny
where he pretty BA move to fold Lilith up back into the portal that's in her own chest cavity.
Oh my gosh.
But then she pops back up at the end, so which doesn't really explain, like, how did she get back there? But it does give you kind of almost a twist horror ending where she's like, well, I'm going to feed on my children now because that's all that's left.
Yeah.
And we do see Lilith come back. That's one of the things about, you were saying how we get kind of a resolution, but then we're always setting up for the next big thing. It's something that comics has always done. So that's kind of what it seemed like they were doing here, which is fine. I wouldn't even mind that so much, an anticlimactic ending, so much if I'd gotten a little more bang for my buck in what was actually presented or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we see Lilith come back later. I'm not going to bag on it too much. It isn't like a bad comic or anything. It's not a terrible ending. It's just, it didn't quite live up to the preceding 5 chapters or whatever.
Well, let's go ahead. We'll, we got to pick out a panel, and I don't know how you're going to avoid like the splash of the battle commencing. We got Ghost Rider, then it will be the first to die. Demon Mother flying through the air while the rest of the team are kind of trying to take out some of these Lilin. Yeah, I'll go ahead and pick that and make you do the hard work if you're going to try and pick something different.
The first appearance in this issue of the Night Stalkers, where they're standing outside the door to their detective agency and the lights are shining through, and they know somebody's in there, so they got their weapons at the ready and everything.
Yeah, and Doctor Strange is like, I don't care what you're doing right now. It's time to go. He just teleports everybody. Like they were in the middle of trying to figure out what's going on. Well, I guess we're not going to find that out until next issue, which it could very well have been something that they led up to and then finished the next issue. But, and the Darkhold Redeemers are getting into a cab, and then the next thing you know, they're not in a cab anymore. They're all sitting there. And what's funny is, like, when they're all there, one guy goes, and how did we all get here? But they're just like, all right, let's go. And there wasn't too much of a question. And it didn't seem like there was much debate as to what they needed to do. Yeah. They knew they were going to go after Lilith, try and stop her. I'm glad that Doctor Strange definitely, left this series by saying, I'm going to try and help Danny, because that's kind of where we started was Ghost Rider, I think, was going to head to Doctor Strange to try and figure out, or Johnny was talking them into it or something. But anyway, I think that's what they were trying to do. They've got to figure out a way to save Danny from this limbo-ish hell. And it turns out, by the end of this issue, he is brought forth into another hell.
Worse off than even before. This was a great launching point for like a corner of the Marvel Universe that hadn't really been explored much for a while up to that point. Pretty much probably since the 70s, I guess.
Really? Yeah.
And a lot of supernatural / action, stuff, and a lot of books that I thought were really cool. Leading from this, they had kind of the annual crossovers. So the following year was Midnight Massacre, which was really cool. And then I think the year after that was Siege of Darkness, which was one that was going on when I got out of comics for a while. So I never got a resolution to that. I have picked up some of the issues over the years, and in Siege of Darkness specifically, like, I think that was an era where there were just too many books and not enough quality artists. And the quality artists that were working, or the artists that were working, were always probably trying to crank stuff out. So the art often suffered in some of those. But reading this again has got me excited to dig into that Darkhold trade I've got and to read some more Night Stalkers and maybe finally finish that Siege of Darkness run and read those. There's also a crossover called Road to Vengeance, which I think is when Lilith finally comes back. That's that's exclusively a Ghost Rider Spirits of Vengeance crossover. It's like 6 parts. If you've ever seen the Neon Chain covers, that's what that storyline was.
Okay. Siege of Darkness, 17 parts between December of, now this says which ran from December of 93 to January of 94. That seems like I'm pretty sure I copied that straight off of the wiki, but 17 part crossover in less than 2 months? I don't think so.
Some of those parts were in Marvel Comics Presents.
Okay.
Which I think was
bi-weekly? Bi-weekly?
It was either weekly or bi-weekly.
All right.
And I'm assuming that the parts that were in Marvel Comics Presents were probably short, because that was an anthology book that usually had 4 stories in a standard 22-page or whatever comic. So they were like 4 to 6 page stories or whatever. So
okay. So yeah,
it may have been different for that crossover. Maybe they devoted the whole issues to it. I don't really know.
Okay. Well, you kind of already mentioned about how the plan for this was to kind of get a stronger subsection of the Marvel universe. At this point, we have the X books, which is probably, if you're talking a subsection of the Marvel U, the X books, X Factor, X-Men, all that had this really sometimes convoluted continuity around it. And I think what they were trying to do with this was make it a little bit more firm when it comes to a continuity level of things. So that was their plans with this this launch of the Midnight Suns. And I think they were talking about, I remember seeing something about them mentioning the dagger emblem for the issues. That was something to kind of try and set them apart from the Marvel universe, from the regular Marvel universe, I should say. So that you're kind of getting that different kind of supernatural type of story that fit together with the rest of the ones with that dagger emblem on it. So, okay, this isn't all encompassing. So please, people, I did a little bit of research, but I've got a little bit of follow up with some of these storylines, these characters. And mainly I didn't focus on Ghost Rider or Johnny Blaze. because their history after this continues on to this day. But the Night Stalkers, that series ran for 18 issues, went from November of 92 to April of 94. Blade gets his own movie. We just talked about this. Blade gets his own movie in 98, the character being portrayed by action movie star of the time, Wesley Snipes. In Blade Trinity, Hannibal King will be portrayed by a man who will get quite a few roles based on comic book characters, and that's Ryan Reynolds. Then for Morbius runs for 32 issues up to April of 1995. And hey, we talked about this already. We're still waiting on it, but it's scheduled for, at least from what I saw, January of 2022. Morbius will hit the big screen, portrayed by Jared Leto.
And I kind of forgot all about that.
I know, man. It's one of well, it's funny because I threw in, like, I wanted to find out what the release date was for it, and the first thing that came up was like, was Morbius canceled? I'm like, oh boy. But no, they still have it set for January of 2022. Darkhold, Pages from the Book of Sins. You kind of mentioned this already. It's the shortest lived series with only 16 issues, finding the last issue on shelves in a very late 1993. This is interesting. This is probably one of the more interesting things that I learned when I was doing this kind of like post follow-up. Louise Hastings was portrayed on a Marvel television show, and I will give you the opportunity to guess which one.
I'm going to guess it was on Runaways.
No, it was not.
Because Morgan Le Fay is in Runaways, right?
That's correct. Yeah, she shows up. Okay. And oh my goodness, she is she is portrayed by oh my god, I can't remember her name, but yes, and she's something. She's something. She portrayed her very well. We'll put it that way. This is actually a rather panned television series. It came out within the last. Inhumans? Nope. This just dropped. Try to think something a little bit more panned than I don't know if you can get more panned than Inhumans. This came out on. This was a Hulu series, I think. Very supernatural. Marvel series. Yeah,
there was one that I just realized I didn't even know existed until a week or
Hellstrom.
Two. That's it. Yeah, that's what I think it was when I was researching stuff for this.
Yep.
And I was like, they made a Hellstrom series? I don't even remember hearing about that.
All the character of Louise Hastings, I think, was in 10 episodes of that series, which I think the series is probably 10 episodes. So she actually has a pretty big, pretty big role.
I wonder if they talk about the Darkhold in it and stuff.
The Caretaker, portrayed by Robert Wisdom, shows up in that same series.
I'm gonna have to watch it.
Yeah, I've let's just say if you want to be a MCU or whatever television completist, by all means. I've not heard good things about the series, but the Caretaker was also, according to what I was reading, portrayed in the cinematic universe, an actual cinematic universe character by one Sam Elliott in the Ghost Rider film.
Right. Yeah.
So
forgot about that. Those movies are bad.
Forgot about that one too. But it's funny we picked this, and I don't know if you know this. I know you and I have kind of discussed video games in the past, and I know you're not the biggest gamer right now, but did you know that there is on the slate in 2021, video game publisher 2K and Firaxis Games announced Marvel's Midnight Suns, a tactical RPG game featuring Blade, Wolverine, Ghost Rider, the Robbie Reyes version, Doctor Strange, Iron Man, Captain America, Captain Marvel, Nico Manuro, speaking of Runaways, Magic, and more to be released in March of 2022. Straight from the wiki right there. Did you have any idea that
was not aware?
Yeah, buddy. That's kind of a big deal, in my opinion. When you're talking, and I read a little bit of the interview, which was pretty neat, but this guy was looking for like the perfect thing to kind of bring forth for this idea that he had. And he's like, holy crap, Midnight Suns would be perfect for this. But it's Midnight Suns, SUNS, sir.
Oh, boo.
Man, what an epic. Let's go ahead. We'll get into closing. This has been a fun discussion with you. I'm glad, number one, that we could spend 2.5 hours talking about the Midnight Suns. I know you're passionate about it. I've really enjoyed it, so it was a good time. Let's go ahead. I guess we'll get into plugs. This would be a good time to plug a sponsor of the W2M network, and that is Grammarly. For you, the listeners of Unspoken Issues, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M network to download Grammarly for free.
But yeah,
Sure.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at BrodyMan34. You can occasionally hear me on Jesse's other podcasts, Source Material, and of course on Unspoken Issues most of the time.
And just to kind of throw this out there, the Tripped Up Trivia show that I had Chris come on will be airing on the 30th, I believe, of October. And it was a horror-related trivia. And I said, Chris Armstrong has to be a part of it. He came on and he participated with 3 other contestants. We had a good time. All sorts of great horror knowledge got dropped. So if you like to play trivia and you like to listen to people play trivia, I don't know. I've never listened to a trivia podcast. There has to be another trivia podcast out there. So over on the unspokendecade.com, yeah, we got one article here, November 4th, 2016, written by Dean Compton. Superblog Team Up presents Nighttime Sunburn, Rise of the Midnight Suns. That's an article you can find right there on the unspokendecade.com.
The gimmick era has never been covered so well.
Blade, Hunting Solo by Emily Scott. So if you want to check out some of the cool articles that we've got over there, just type in Rise of the Midnight Suns. You're going to find something to do with Ghost Rider, Blade, all sorts of great 90s comics right there for you. And in regards to myself, you can follow me at Stiznarkey. Chris already mentioned we do the right on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network and the W2Mnet.com network as well. I do a podcast called Source Material on the 31st of October. I will just tell you, check out the episode that Alexis, Hannah, and myself did discussing Power Rangers, A Nightmare on Elm Street. So I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to go into some of the insanity because you need to listen to the episode just to hear what unfolds in the 4 or 5 issues that we get to cover. But all right, with that being said, this massive Unspoken Epic has come to an end. I want to thank Chris Armstrong for going through all 6 issues of Rise of the Midnight Suns with me. I am Jesse Starcher. We'll be catching you soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
We'll catch you next year with Midnight Massacre.
That's right. Get ready.
Thank you all for joining us. Make sure to give that Radulich in Broadcasting Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts we have to offer. We are at home on Spreaker, but you can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and recently we have hit the air on Spotify. Find your favorite podcast platform and type in RADULICH to subscribe for some great content. If you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word. And as always, we appreciate any feedback and look forward to entertaining you again soon.